They said the human shouldn't touch the acid tank. He dipped a finger to test the temperature. The cargo freighter Meridian Star had seen better days, and Chief Engineer Vrethkai had seen better crews. However, he never complained because complaining was not in his nature as a Kelthrani, a species known for their patience and their hard exoskeletons that clicked when they walked. Vrethkai had worked with many different aliens during his 30 cycles aboard various ships. He had supervised Kelori engineers with their beautiful crystalline bodies. He had trained Novolan technicians who breathed gases that would kill most species. And he had even shared a meal with a Theshan diplomat once, though her tentacles made him nervous the entire time. But he had never worked with a human before. And when Captain Thisra told him that a human would be joining the engineering team, Vrethkai felt something strange in his thorax. Was it curiosity or was it fear? Humans are Deathworlders. His assistant Krylinak warned him the night before the new crew member arrived. I have heard stories about their planet, and none of them are pleasant. What kind of stories? Vrethkai asked, though part of him did not want to know the answer. Krylinak leaned closer, his antennae twitching with anxiety. Their world has gravity so strong it would flatten our bodies in minutes. Their star bombards them with radiation that would cook our organs. And they share their planet with millions of other species that want to eat them, predators with teeth and claws and venom. Vrethkai made a dismissive clicking sound. You believe too many spacer tailies, Krylinak. I am sure the human will be perfectly ordinary. He was wrong about that. Spectacularly and completely wrong. Marcus Cole arrived on a shuttle from Station Calith 9 the next morning, and Vrethkai's first impression was disappointment. The human looked so unremarkable, so plain, so boring. He was shorter than Vrethkai expected, with brown fur on top of his head and strange pale skin that looked soft and vulnerable. His hands were thick with rough patches that the human called calluses, and his smile came easily, showing flat white teeth that seemed designed for nothing in particular. Chief Engineer Vrethkai? The human asked, extending one of those strange 5-fingered hands. I'm Marcus Cole, your new environmental systems technician. It's good to meet you. Vrethkai carefully touched the human's hand with his own clawed appendage, surprised by the warmth radiating from the creature's skin. Welcome aboard the Meridian Star, human Marcus. I trust your journey was acceptable. Call me just Marcus, please, the human said with that easy smile. And yeah, the trip was fine, spent most of it reading the ship's technical manuals. You've got an interesting cooling system set up here. Vrethkai felt a small spark of approval. Perhaps this human would be useful after all, despite the wild stories. The first 2 shifts passed without incident. Marcus proved himself competent with the ship's systems, asking intelligent questions and following safety protocols without complaint. The other crew members watched him from a distance, whispering among themselves, but Marcus either did not notice or did not care. It was on the 3rd shift that everything changed forever. The Meridian Star's environmental systems relied on a complex network of cooling tanks, heat exchangers, and chemical reservoirs. The most important of these was Tank 7, which held approximately 2,000 liters of Compound 77, a pale green industrial solvent used to regulate the ship's core temperature. Compound 77 was considered a mild chemical by galactic standards. Most species could handle it safely with basic protective gloves, and exposure to small amounts would cause only minor irritation. However, the warning labels on Tank 7 were clear and specific, listing dozens of species for whom the compound was dangerous. Humans were on that list, marked in red text with 3 exclamation symbols. Vrethkai was reviewing maintenance schedules when the alarm on Tank 7 began to beep. The temperature sensor was malfunctioning again, giving readings that fluctuated wildly between safe and critical. I need someone to check Tank 7 manually, Vrethkai announced over the engineering com. The sensor is giving false readings again. I'm closest, Marcus's voice came back. I'll handle it. Rethkai thought nothing of it at first. Checking the tank manually simply meant reading the backup gauge on the tank's exterior. A pale, simple task that required no contact with the chemical inside. But when Rethkai rounded the corner into the cooling bay, he saw something that made his exoskeleton rattle with terror. Marcus was standing beside Tank 7, which had its maintenance hatch open. The pale green liquid shimmered under the bay's lights, and the human was reaching toward it with his bare hand. Human! Rethkai screamed, his voice hitting frequencies he had not used since childhood. Stop, do not touch that compound. Marcus paused, his finger hovering just above the surface of the liquid. He looked at Rethkai with confusion written across his soft face. What's wrong? That compound will dissolve organic tissue on contact. Rethkai rushed forward, his legs clicking frantically against the deck plates. Your species is listed as highly vulnerable. The warning label specifically mentions humans. Marcus looked at the tank, then at his hand, then back at Rethkai. Something strange happened to his expression, something that Rethkai would later describe as dangerously casual. This stuff? Marcus asked, gesturing at the shimmering green chemical. Nah, this is just a basic alkaline solvent. We use something way stronger than this to clean engine blocks back on Earth. My dad had me helping in his repair shop when I was 12 years old. Human, I must insist that you step away from. But Marcus was not listening anymore. Before Rethkai could finish his sentence, before he could even process what was happening, the human dipped his index finger directly into Tank 7. He swirled it around once, twice, 3 times, as casually as someone testing bathwater. Rethkai felt his heart stop all 3 of them simultaneously. Marcus pulled his finger out and examined it thoughtfully, tilting his hand back and forth under the light. Yeah, it's lukewarm, he announced, as if he had not just done something impossible. Your cooling cycle might be running slow. Want me to check the circulation pumps? The engineering bay had gone completely silent. Krylenak stood frozen by the door, his antennae flat against his head in pure shock. 2 Kalori technicians had dropped their tools and were staring with their crystalline mouths hanging open. Rethkai forced himself to look at Marcus's finger, expecting to see bone, expecting to see the flesh melting away like ice in a furnace. But the finger was fine pink, whole, completely undamaged. There was not even a mark on the skin. How? Rethkai whispered, his voice barely audible. How is that possible? Marcus shrugged, wiping his hand on his uniform pants. Honestly, I don't know what the big deal is. It's just a little industrial solvent. My skins felt worse from hot sauce. He walked past the stunned crew members, heading toward the circulation pumps, leaving Rethkai standing beside Tank 7, with a terrible realization forming in his mind. Everything the story said about humans might be true. And that meant the Meridian Star was carrying something far more dangerous than any chemical in its cargo holds. They were carrying a human who did not know he was terrifying. News traveled fast on the Meridian Star, faster than light itself it seemed, and by the time the next shift began, every single crew member knew what the human had done. He touched Compound 77. The Kalori cook whispered to the navigation officer during mealtime. With his bare skin, no protection at all. I heard he swam in it, the navigation officer whispered back. And even though that was not true, the story kept growing with each telling. Dr. Yanara was the ship's medical officer, a Kalori female whose crystalline body refracted light into rainbow patterns when she moved. She had served aboard 17 different vessels during her long career, and she had treated injuries ranging from plasma burns to parasitic infections from uncharted worlds. But she had never examined a human before. And when Captain Theshra ordered her to conduct a full medical evaluation of Marcus Cole, She felt genuine scientific excitement mixed with something that might have been fear. "Please sit on the examination table, Human Marcus," Yanara said, gesturing with one of her translucent arms. "I need to run some standard scans." Marcus hopped onto the table with an easy smile. "Just Marcus is fine, Doc. And honestly, I feel completely normal. I don't know why everyone is making such a big deal about this." "You submerged your finger in a chemical compound that should have caused severe tissue damage," Yanara replied, calibrating her scanner. "The warning labels for your species were very specific." "Warning labels are usually just covering for liability," Marcus said with a shrug. "Back on Earth, we had warning labels that said coffee was hot, like anyone needed to be told that." Yanara did not understand the reference, but she filed it away for later consideration. Humans were strange creatures, and every piece of information might prove valuable. The first scan showed nothing unusual, at least, nothing unusual for a human. Marcus's internal temperature was higher than most species. His heart rate was faster, and his blood pressure would have indicated critical illness in almost any other creature. But according to the medical database, these readings were perfectly normal for his kind. "I need to examine your finger more closely," Yanara said. "The one you used to touch the compound." Marcus held out his hand without hesitation, and Yanara activated her molecular scanner, focusing on the skin of his index finger. What she saw made her crystalline face fracture with shock. "This is impossible," she breathed, running the scan again to confirm her readings. "What is it?" Marcus asked, leaning forward to look at the screen. "Is something wrong?" "Your epidermis," Yanara said slowly, struggling to find words that would convey her amazement. "Your outer skin layer, it shows signs of minor chemical irritation, equivalent to what my species would experience from exposure to ordinary sunlight." "So the compound did affect me?" Marcus looked at his finger with new interest. "I didn't feel anything." "That is precisely the problem," Yanara said. "You should have felt extreme pain. The compound should have penetrated your skin within seconds and begun dissolving the tissue beneath. But your epidermis stopped it." She pulled up a comparative anatomy chart on her display screen, showing the skin structure of various galactic species. Most of them had single-layer protective membranes, efficient and elegant, but vulnerable to chemical damage. "Look at this," Yanara said, pointing to a diagram of human skin. "Your species has multiple layers of protection, an outer layer of dead cells that are constantly being shed and replaced, a middle layer filled with complex proteins, and a deeper layer containing blood vessels and nerve endings. The compound could not penetrate fast enough because your body was literally throwing away the damaged cells and growing new ones." Marcus stared at the diagram for a moment. "That's just regular skin, Doc. Everyone on Earth has it. No one else in the galaxy has it," Yanara corrected him. "This level of redundancy, this constant regeneration, it is extraordinary. Your skin is not just a covering, it is an active defense system." She ran more scans, each one revealing new impossibilities. Marcus's immune system contained specialized cells that actively hunted and destroyed foreign compounds. His body could regulate its own temperature through a process called sweating, which most species found disgusting, but which was remarkably efficient. His stomach contained acids strong enough to dissolve metal. "You digest your food with chemicals that would kill most species," Yanara said, her voice rising with each discovery. "Your blood contains clotting agents that seal wounds within minutes. Your bones are dense enough to survive impacts that would shatter calorie crystal. You heal from injuries that would be permanent for other species." Marcus was starting to look uncomfortable. "Doc, you're making it sound like I'm some kind of monster." "Not a monster," Yanara said, finally sitting down because her legs felt weak. "But you are not like other species. You are not optimized for any single environment. You are optimized for survival itself." Your body expects to be damaged, expects to be poisoned, expects to be attacked, and it has developed countermeasures for everything. She looked at him with new eyes, seeing not the soft-skinned mammal she had examined minutes ago, but something far more dangerous, a creature forged by millions of years of evolutionary warfare. "What kind of world did you come from?" Yanara asked quietly. "What kind of planet creates a species like yours?" Marcus was silent for a long moment before answering. "Earth isn't that bad, really. Sure, we have some dangerous animals and poisonous plants and diseases that try to kill us, but every planet has those, right?" "No," Yanara said. "Most planets do not. Most species evolved in stable environments with predictable threats. They developed specific defenses against specific dangers. But your world must be chaos itself." She began writing her medical report, her crystalline fingers trembling slightly as she typed. When she reached the section for recommended actions, she paused for a long time before entering a single sentence. Captain Thesra read the report in her private quarters that evening, her tentacles curling with tension as she processed the information. Dr. Yanara's findings were thorough and terrifying. The human was not just resistant to Compound 77. He was resistant to almost everything. His body could survive temperature extremes that would kill Kellori within minutes. He could process toxins that would shut down a Thesian nervous system. He could lose significant amounts of blood and continue functioning. He could even survive without water for days, something that would be fatal to most species within hours. And perhaps most disturbing of all, humans felt pain, but they could ignore it. They could compartmentalize agony and continue performing complex tasks while their bodies screamed at them to stop. Captain Thesra looked at the recommended actions section of the report and read Yanara's single sentence: "Do not let the human know how frightened we are." She understood the wisdom in those words. Marcus Cole seemed friendly and cooperative, but he was also a member of a species that had conquered their death world through sheer stubbornness. If humans ever realized how much stronger they were than other galactic species, if they ever decided to stop being friendly, the consequences would be unimaginable. For the first time in her long career, Captain Thesra wondered if she had made a mistake accepting a human crew member, not because Marcus was dangerous, but because his very existence revealed how fragile everyone else truly was. She filed the report under maximum security classification and decided to keep a closer eye on her newest crew member. After all, it was better to be cautious around something you did not fully understand, especially when that something could survive touching acid and not even notice. 3 cycles passed aboard the Meridian Star, and life slowly returned to something resembling normal. The crew still watched Marcus from the corners of their eyes, still whispered when he walked past, but the initial shock had faded into cautious acceptance. Marcus continued doing his job with quiet competence, fixing broken systems and maintaining the ship's environmental controls. He ate his meals alone most days, not because he wanted to, but because the other crew members always seemed to have somewhere else to be when he sat down. If this bothered him, he never showed it. Vrethkai found himself checking on the human more often than necessary, telling himself it was professional concern, but knowing deep down that he was fascinated by this impossible creature. How could something so soft-looking be so resilient? "You seem thoughtful today, Chief," Marcus said, during one of these visits, looking up from a conduit he was repairing. "Something on your mind?" Vrethkai hesitated before answering. "I was merely wondering how you find life aboard our vessel. It must be very different from your homeworld." Marcus laughed a strange sound that the Kelthrani found oddly pleasant. "Everything in space is different from Earth, Chief. The gravity is lighter, the air smells recycled, and I haven't seen a sunset in months. But honestly, a ship is a ship. Give me something to fix, and I'm happy." It was a simple answer, but Vrethkai sensed deeper truths beneath the surface. Humans were adaptable, the medical report had said. They could adjust to almost any environment, surviving conditions that would break other species. Perhaps that was why Marcus seemed so content. He had already adapted to his new circumstances, while everyone else was still adapting to him. The attack came without warning. The Meridian Star was passing through the Kelith corridor, a trade route known for occasional pirate activity, when the proximity alarms began screaming. Captain Thisra barely had time to reach the bridge before the first boarding clamps attached to the cargo bay doors. "Varax Raiders!" the navigation officer shouted, his voice cracking with panic. 8 signatures breaching through Cargo Bay 4. The Varax were infamous throughout the sector reptilian predators, who had turned to piracy after their homeworld's economy collapsed. They were fast, strong, and completely without mercy. Most cargo ships surrendered immediately when the Varax boarded, because resistance usually meant death. All crew members shelter in place. Captain Thisra announced over the ship-wide comm. "Do not engage the boarders, I repeat. Do not engage." It was good advice, sensible advice, advice that would save lives. Unfortunately, not everyone heard it. Marcus was deep in the engineering section when the alarm started, his hands covered in lubricant from a pump he was servicing. The ship-wide comm was malfunctioning in that area, a repair he had been planning to make the next day, so he never heard the captain's order. What he did hear was the sound of plasma torches cutting through the cargo bay doors, followed by the heavy footsteps of something large moving through the ship. Marcus wiped his hands on a rag and looked around the engineering bay. Emergency protocols said he should find a secure location and wait, but the sounds were coming from the direction of the life support systems. If the raiders damaged those systems, everyone on the ship would die. He grabbed the nearest useful object, a length of steel pipe left over from a previous repair job, and moved toward the cargo bay. The Varax boarding party had expected easy prey. They had raided dozens of cargo ships, and the pattern was always the same. Terrified merchants hiding in corners. Maybe a few security guards with outdated weapons. Nothing that 8 armed warriors could not handle. They did not expect to encounter a human. The first Varax through the cargo bay door was named Skrell, a veteran of 30 raids who had killed more beings than he could count. He was scanning the bay for threats when something fast and solid struck his weapon arm with tremendous force. The bone broke with a sound like cracking ice, and Skrell's plasma rifle clattered to the deck. Before he could even scream, a second blow caught him across the back of his skull, and everything went dark. The other Varax reacted with trained precision, raising their weapons and searching for the attacker. What they found was a small mammal with soft pink skin, holding a blood-stained pipe and standing over Skrell's unconscious body. "What is that thing?" one of them hissed, his scales rippling with confusion. "I don't know," the squad leader replied, aiming his plasma rifle. "But it's about to die." He fired, and the green bolt of superheated energy streaked toward the human's chest. Marcus moved not fast enough to dodge completely, but fast enough that the bolt only grazed his shoulder instead of hitting him center mass. The Varax expected him to fall, expected him to scream, expected him to die like every other soft-skinned creature they had ever shot. But Marcus did none of those things. Instead, he charged directly at the squad leader, closing the distance before anyone could fire again. The pipe swung in a vicious arc, catching the Varax in the throat and crushing his windpipe. The remaining 6 raiders opened fire simultaneously, but Marcus was already moving, using the squad leader's falling body as a shield. Plasma bolts burned into dead scales while the humans circled around, staying low, staying fast, staying alive. Vrethkai watched the security footage later, slowing it down to examine every detail. The fight lasted exactly 11 seconds from start to finish, and during those 11 seconds, Marcus Cole dismantled 8 armed warriors with nothing but a steel pipe and the absolute refusal to stop moving. He broke arms, shattered kneecaps, cracked skulls, targeting vulnerable points with precision that spoke of either extensive training or terrifying instinct. Every movement was efficient, every strike had purpose, and through it all, his face remained calm and focused. "Persistence Predator," Dr. Yanara whispered, standing beside Rethkai in the security office. Their ancestors chased prey across entire continents, running for hours and days until their targets collapsed from exhaustion. They don't need claws or venom or armor. They have stamina and the complete inability to give up. On the screen, Marcus took another plasma graze, this time across his ribs. The wound was ugly, blackened flesh and visible blood, but he did not even slow down. His body simply filed the pain away somewhere and continued fighting. The last Virac standing tried to run. Marcus caught him in 3 steps and put him down with a single blow. Then the human stood alone in the cargo bay, surrounded by 8 unconscious or dead raiders, breathing hard but still upright. He looked down at his wounds, the shoulder burn, the ribs, several cuts and bruises from close combat, and shrugged. "Guess I should probably see the doctor," he said to no one in particular, as if he had just stubbed his toe instead of single-handedly defeating a boarding party. Rethkai stopped the recording and sat in silence for a long moment. Beside him, Dr. Yanara's crystalline body was fracturing with stress, tiny cracks spreading across her surface. "What have we been living with?" Rethkai finally asked. "What kind of creature is he?" "Human," Yanara answered simply. "He is human, and I think the galaxy has severely underestimated what that means." The Meridian star limped through space with damaged hull plating and a crew that could not stop talking about what they had witnessed. Dr. Yanara had treated Marcus's wounds, the plasma burns, the cuts, the deep bruise on his knuckles from hitting Virac's skulls, and pronounced him fit for duty the very next day. "His tissue is already regenerating," she told Captain Thisra in her medical report. "The cellular repair mechanisms in his body are working faster than I have ever seen. Within a week, there will be barely any scarring." The crew members who had hidden during the attack emerged to find 8 Vorax raiders restrained in the cargo bay, guarded by a human who was calmly eating a protein bar and reading a technical manual. Most of them did not know how to react. Some avoided Marcus even more than before, crossing corridors to keep distance between themselves and a creature that had proven itself so capable of violence. Others looked at him with something like worship, grateful to be alive because of his actions. And a few, like Rethkai, simply wanted to understand. "The humans saved us all," Krillanak said during the next engineering shift, his voice hushed with awe. 8 armed raiders, he defeated them alone. "He did what was necessary," Rethkai replied, though he too could not stop thinking about those 11 seconds of recorded footage. "He protected the ship and crew." "But how?" Krillanak pressed. "He has no claws, no armor, no venom. His body looks like it would break if you squeeze too hard." "How did he win against Virac's warriors?" Rethkai did not have an answer, but he intended to find one. He located Marcus in the engine room 3 shifts later, finding the human exactly where he expected, buried in machinery, fixing something that probably did not need fixing because the human seemed incapable of sitting still. "Human Marcus," Rethkai began, then corrected himself. "Marcus, may I speak with you?" Marcus looked up from the conduit he was rewiring and smiled. "Sure, Chief. What's on your mind?" Rethkai lowered himself onto a storage crate, arranging his exoskeleton into something resembling a comfortable position. "I have been thinking about your homeworld." "About Earth, yeah?" Marcus wiped his hands and gave Rethkai his full attention. "What about it?" "I have read the files in our database," Rethkai said slowly. "They describe a planet of extreme conditions, Gravity that would crush my bones. Radiation from your sun that would damage my cells. Atmospheric oxygen levels that would poison most species. Temperature variations that swing between freezing and boiling depending on location and season. Marcus nodded. That sounds about right. And the life forms, Rethkai continued. Predators with teeth and claws. Venomous creatures that deliver poison through bites and stings. Microscopic organisms that invade bodies and wage war against immune systems. Plants that produce toxins to defend themselves. We've got all of those, Marcus agreed. Some of them are pretty nasty, actually. Rethkai leaned forward, his antennae twitching with the question he'd been building toward. How did your species survive, Marcus? How did soft creatures with no natural weapons manage to become the dominant life form on such a hostile world? Marcus was quiet for a long moment, staring at the deck plates as if the answer was written there. When he finally spoke, his voice was different, softer, older, carrying weight that Rethkai had not heard before. We almost didn't, Marcus said. Survive, I mean? There were times when our entire species nearly went extinct. What happened? Ice ages came and covered our world in frozen death. We survived by learning to control fire and make warm clothing from animal skins. Plagues swept through our populations and killed millions. We survived by developing medicine and learning how diseases spread. Predators hunted us in the darkness. We survived by making weapons and hunting them back. Marcus picked up a small tool and turned it over in his hands, examining it without really seeing it. But the biggest threat was always ourselves, he continued. We fought wars against each other, terrible wars that killed billions of our own kind. We poisoned our own air and water with industrial waste. We built weapons capable of destroying our entire planet and came close to using them more than once. Yet you survived all of that, Rethkai said softly. Barely, Marcus replied. And not everyone did. We left a lot of ourselves behind on the climb. A lot of blood, a lot of graves, a lot of lessons learned the hard way. He set the tool down and looked directly at Rethkai. And for a moment, the chief engineer saw something ancient behind those soft brown eyes. Something that had watched ice sheets advance and retreat. That had felt the fire of burning cities. That carried the memory of countless generations who had died so that their children could live. Here's the thing about humans, Rethkai, Marcus said. We're not the strongest species. We're not the fastest or the toughest or the most intelligent. What we are is stubborn. Stubborn? The universe kept trying to kill us, and we refused to die. Every time something knocked us down, we got back up. Every time something killed one of us, the rest of us got angry and figured out how to kill it back. We're too stupid to know when we're beaten and too stubborn to quit even when we do know. Marcus smiled, but it was not the easy smile Rethkai had seen before. This smile was tired, ancient, carrying the weight of millions of years of survival. Every scar is a lesson, Marcus said. Every death is motivation. We didn't conquer Earth because we were strong. We survived it because we absolutely refused to be weak. And when being strong wasn't enough, we invented tools and weapons and medicine and technology until it was. Rethkai felt something cold settle in his thorax, but it was not fear. It was respect deep, genuine respect for a species that had clawed its way up from prey, animal to spacefaring civilization through nothing but pure determination. You are not monsters, Rethkai said slowly, understanding finally dawning. You are survivors. Same thing from a certain point of view, Marcus replied. We did terrible things to survive. Things we're not proud of. Things we try to do better about now. But when the choice is between terrible things and extinction, well, humans have always chosen to exist. He picked up his tool again and turned back to the conduit, the moment of ancient weight passing as quickly as it had come. Sorry, Chief, didn't mean to get all philosophical on you. My dad used to say I think too much for an engineer. Vrethkai rose slowly, his joints clicking as he moved. Thank you, Marcus. I believe I understand your species better now. Yeah. Marcus glanced back with a curious expression. What do you understand? Vrethkai considered the question carefully before answering. That the galaxy has been very lucky. Humanity could have become conquerors, could have used your stubbornness to dominate and destroy. Instead, you chose to reach out in friendship. Marcus was quiet for a moment, then nodded slowly. Most of us want to be friends, yeah. We've had enough of fighting. Then I am glad you are on our ship, Vrethkai said, and meant it. And I am glad you are on our side. He left Marcus to his repairs, walking through the corridors of the Meridian Star with a new understanding of the creature they carried. Humans were terrifying, yes, but they were also choosing, every day, not to be the monsters their evolution had prepared them to become. That choice, Vrethkai thought, might be the most impressive thing about them. Galactic Station Orange 7 was one of the largest trading hubs in the sector, a massive structure of interconnected rings that housed millions of beings from hundreds of different species. Ships came and went constantly, carrying cargo and passengers and news from across the known galaxy. The Meridian Star arrived at Orange 7 with its hull scarred by plasma damage and its reputation completely transformed. News of the pirate attack had spread through the communication networks faster than the ship itself could travel, and by the time they docked, everyone on the station seemed to know about the human who had single-handedly defeated 8 Varax raiders. Footage from your cargo bay has been viewed over 17 million times. Captain Thishra informed the crew during their final briefing before disembarkation. Various news outlets are calling it the most dramatic display of human combat capability ever recorded outside of Earth space. Marcus shifted uncomfortably in his seat. I was just protecting the ship, Captain. I didn't mean to become famous. Fame has chosen you regardless, Thishra replied, her tentacles rippling with something that might have been amusement. I suggest you prepare yourself for attention. The attention began the moment Marcus walked down the gangway onto the station's main concourse. Conversation stopped, heads turned, and a circle of empty space seemed to form around him wherever he moved. A Callery merchant gathered her children and hurried away, glancing back with fearful eyes. A group of Theshan traders stopped their negotiations to stare. A Nuvolan in his environmental suit actually bumped into a support pillar because he was not watching where he was going. Marcus noticed all of it but said nothing. He simply bought a ration bar from a vendor who trembled so badly she nearly dropped his payment, thanked her politely, and found a bench near the observation windows where he could sit alone. The station's outer ring offered a magnificent view of space, distant stars burning against the endless black, ships moving like fireflies between docking ports, the colorful swirl of a nearby nebula painting the darkness with shades of purple and gold. Marcus ate his ration bar in silence, watching the stars and trying not to think about the empty space that surrounded him, the space that marked him as different, as dangerous, as something to be feared. He had hoped that space would be different from Earth, that among alien species he might finally find acceptance for what he was. But it seemed that wherever humans went, fear followed. May I join you? Marcus looked up to find Vrethkai standing beside the bench, his exoskeleton clicking softly as he shifted his weight from leg to leg. Sure, Chief, Marcus said, gesturing to the empty seat beside him. Plenty of room. Vrethkai settled his body onto the bench with the careful movements of someone not designed for sitting. For a long moment, they simply watched the ships together in comfortable silence. They fear you now, Vrethkai said finally. The stories are already spreading. They say humans bathe in acid, that you cannot be killed, that you feel no pain. Marcus snorted softly. Most of that is exaggerated. Is it? We feel pain, Marcus said. We just compartmentalize it, I guess. Put it in a box and deal with it later. Our ancestors couldn't afford to let pain stop them when there was a tiger trying to eat their family. And the acid? Rethkai asked, his antennae twitching with something like humor. Marcus looked at his finger, the same finger he had dipped into Tank 7 what seemed like a lifetime ago. It was pink and whole, without even a scar to mark where the compound had touched his skin. Okay, he admitted with a small smile. That part might have been showing off a little. Rethkai made a sound that his translation device rendered as laughter. I suspected as much. They sat together as ships drifted past the observation windows. Two very different creatures, sharing a moment of connection in the vast loneliness of space. I have been thinking about what you told me, Rethkai said eventually. About human stubbornness, about your refusal to be weak, yeah? I think I understand now why the galaxy fears your kind so much. It is not your strength that frightens them, not your ability to survive poison and pain. It is your potential. Marcus turned to look at his companion. What do you mean? You are a young species, Rethkai explained. Humanity has been traveling among the stars for only a few of your generations. You are still learning, still growing, still discovering what you are capable of. That's true, Marcus agreed. But what you have already accomplished is remarkable, surviving your death world, developing technology to reach space, adapting to conditions that would destroy other species. And you did all of this while fighting yourselves, while carrying the weight of your own violent history. Rethkai turned his head to face Marcus directly, his compound eyes reflecting the distant starlight. Imagine what you will become when you stop fighting yourselves, he said quietly. Imagine what humanity could achieve if all that stubbornness, all that determination, all that refusal to die was focused outward instead of inward. That is what the galaxy fears, not what humans are, but what humans might become. Marcus considered this for a long moment before responding. I think most humans just want to explore, to learn, to make connections with other species. We've had enough of conquest and domination. I believe you, Rethkai said. But belief and certainty are different things. The galaxy will need time to trust your kind, time to see that humans can be friends rather than threats. And until then? Until then, you will face fear and suspicion and empty spaces around you wherever you go. It is not fair, and it is not right, but it is reality. Marcus nodded slowly, accepting the truth of Rethkai's words. I can live with that. Humans are good at waiting persistence predators, remember? I remember, Rethkai said, and there was warmth in his voice, despite the clicking of his mandibles. I also remember that 3 cycles ago, I thought humans were exaggerated legends. Now, I know better. He rose from the bench, his joints clicking as he straightened. I think the galaxy has misunderstood your kind, Marcus. You are not monsters, not demons, not the terrifying creatures from Space Orcs. You are simply forged differently. Forged differently? By a world that offered no mercy, you learned to carry your own. By a universe that tried to destroy you, you learned to fight back. You are not monsters. You are survivors who have chosen to reach out in friendship, despite everything your history taught you about trusting others. Rethkai extended one clawed appendage in the human gesture of handshaking. That choice, I think, is more impressive than any feat of strength. Marcus stood and took the offered claw, wrapping his soft fingers around the hard chitin. That's probably the nicest thing anyone said about humanity. It was not meant as a compliment. Marcus laughed. I know, that's why it's nice. They stood together at the observation window as more ships drifted past. Cargo vessels and passenger liners and exploration craft, all carrying beings who lived and worked among the stars. Somewhere out there, Marcus thought, other humans were having similar conversations, forming similar connections, slowly building the trust that would eventually replace the fear. It would take time, maybe generations, but humans were patient. Above them, the stars burned cold and ancient, the same stars that humans had once watched from their dangerous little planet while dreaming of the day they would finally reach out and touch them. They had touched far more than stars now. And someday, Marcus knew, the galaxy would understand that human hands could build as well as destroy, could heal as well as harm, could reach out in friendship as easily as they could curl into fists. Until that day came, he would keep fixing engines and making connections and showing the universe that humanity was more than the sum of their fears. It was what humans did. After all, they survived, they adapted, and they kept moving forward, no matter what stood in their way. And eventually, the galaxy would learn that having humans as friends was far better than having them as enemies.